So nearby Nisha, this episode's about sunglasses, so...
Ah, yeah.
£5. Top Gun is a film in which Tom Cruise very nearly causes World War III by jet slapping a bunch of MiGs out of the sky at the height of the Cold War. But nobody really cares because the soundtrack is that bitchin'.
Which one?
Just the soundtrack. He's got like Highway to the Danger Zone, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Got like Kenny Loggins on the go.
The Kenny Loggins one, and then there's like...
Yeah, when they're just like up in the air and like, you know, they're just jet slapping. Let's go. So I only remember the film partially because just that volleyball scene. It's so homoerotic and it's kind of hilarious because nobody realised. Because back in the 80s, like, that wasn't on the forefront of people's minds, and it's kind of hilarious now when you look at it. And it's just like, hell yeah, look at all these huge buff dudes just playing around on the beach, having fun. It's like when you watch Rocky 2 or 3, I think it is, where Rocky is training with Apollo Creed on the beach. And because they're wearing those like 80s style super tiny shorts. And those like t-shirts that come up to here, so they shop it out, and they're just running on the beach and jumping in the water, splashing together. And he's like, yeah, just some good old-fashioned wholesome man fun.
Oh yeah.
This gives me a hard on. Don't tease me. Lines, please.
I love the 80s, they didn't know. Anyway, while not an immediate success, the film did increase the sale of Ray-Ban sunglasses by like a lot.
A lot.
About 50% if people want.
Say, how
If people want to be more specific, about 50%. So Nisha, what do you know about Top Gun? Besides the fact that it's like super homoerotic and that is hilarious.
I know it's a film with
Yeah,
Tom Cruise about aviation and things.
Yep, and there's a sequel that was recently made.
Yep.
And the sequel's kind of interesting to look at because the original Top Gun movie was it wasn't a critical darling, it was a huge box office smash, and it made about $500 million on a $15 to $20 million budget. And for context, they spent that amount of money 20, 30 years later just to secure Tom Cruise for the sequel. So Tom Cruise's salary for the second movie was more than the budget of the first movie in its entirety.
That is insane.
It is insane, but it's also like kind of impressive when you realise like how much stuff was accomplished for real in that Top Gun movie. Because almost all of the jet fighting scenes were filmed for real with real jets. And that's kind of an issue because it's really difficult to get a camera into the cockpit of a jet.
And I think in the 80s as well, I imagine they would have been a lot bigger.
Yes.
Like a lot of technology is a lot bigger, like the first computer filled a room. And then now technology is a lot smaller, like this camera we're using.
Yeah, it's probably the same quality you'd have had like 30, 40 years ago. One of those things like you'd break your back, try to film with it. It's like the audio we record, we have these little just lovely air mics here. They can record for like, 3-4 hours, no problem on a single battery charge. You go back to the 80s and show something like you blow their mind. They'd burn you as a witch.
Although like phones are getting bigger again, because I found like an old phone of mine from like 10 years ago. It's so small compared to my phone now.
And that's until like the meme people make is like, this is when people realise you can watch videos on your phone and the screens just start getting massive again.
And also you get I don't know if Apple does it, but Samsung, which is the brand I always go with, they do the foldable phones.
Oh, they're
I just think they're just gonna break so easily.
Did you see the reviews for that where the foldable phone, I think it was the Samsung Fold, came out within, I think, 2 hours? Tech journalists who got early hands on them were like, it's broken.
I'm not surprised.
Like, literally, from the moment it was placed into someone's pocket, the screen's falling off. Because if you ever saw how they work, it's like they fold, so you're like that.
Yeah.
But there was nothing to protect the hinge. So just dirt and grime could get into there. So you put it into your pocket and just immediately pocket lint gets under the screen. And they broke in less than a day. And then you've had like weirdo Samsung fanboys being like, well, the journalists are just using them wrong. So these are people who are paid to use phones for a living. Also, that's like general wear and tear to be expected when a member of the public gets hands on them.
Exactly, like you put your phone in your pocket.
Yeah.
It's an everyday thing, so.
I forget which iPhone it was, but it had the antenna located, well, I've got a phone here, so it had it like, the antenna was located like here. So when you held it, the heel of your palm covered up the antenna, so when you tried to talk on it, you'd get cut off. And it's because, if anyone's wondered, like, wait, what? How did they make a blunder that stupid? It's because everyone at Apple used their phone like they're on The Apprentice, like that.
Oh, yeah.
They expect everyone to talk like that. They don't expect people to use it and hold it like a phone. And because that no one thought of that, they put the fucking antenna right there. Bring it back to Top Gun, the film. As mentioned, it was a complete and utter ball ache to film because they simply could not get the cameras required into the cockpit of planes, and they had to settle for using the Super 35 format, which was kind of outdated at the time, but those were the only kind of cameras they could fit into the cockpit.
Looks like he's a single. Cougar, I'm gonna go head-to-head with him. Take it easy, Maverick. I don't like this shit.
And fast forward to Top Gun Maverick, and they not just managed to correct that, but they overcorrected it and were somehow able to fit 6 IMAX cameras into the cockpit of a jet plane.
6?
6!
Are
to
you
get all the
kidding?
different angles of Tom Cruise in there.
Holy shit.
And the fact that made me giggle is that they used orbular lenses.
Oh, like circular,
Yeah.
sort of, are they like wide angle or something?
The
like
super wide,
Yeah.
the technical descriptor is spherical, but I like the term orbular.
that? Orbular.
Yeah. And now can we just get that Drake and Josh clip of just like, it's spherical.
It's spherical! Spherical!
And they just had 6 of these cameras with super wide angle lenses dotted around the cockpit of the jet planes that Tom Cruise was in that were able to film in IMAX quality, which, just goes to prove that thing you mentioned earlier of technology getting smaller as you go along, because in the 80s they could get 1 camera in an outdated format into the cockpit. In the 2020s they were able to get 6 like 4K cameras directly in there.
So, did they pay for Tom Cruise to wear like Ray-Bans in the film?
Unfortunately, I can't say for sure, because while researching this, sources were a little bit conflicted. And there are some sources that say that the owner of Ray-Ban, and I hope I can pronounce this correctly here, Bolsch and Loam, did pay for Tom Cruise to wear the sunglasses in the film. Then I found another source, a guy called Gary Mezzatesta, who was in charge of procurement for specific props for film. So, Joe, if a film needs something very specific and or unique,
Yeah.
he was the guy you'd call. And according to him, Ray-Ban never paid to have their product featured in any film, but they were happy to provide as many examples of a product that was required. And for anyone curious like how that works, that's a pretty common thing when it comes to film and TV production. And for anyone who's ever been curious, like why does almost every character on TV use an iPhone or Apple device? That's because Apple approaches studios and just gives them hundreds of free iPhones and iPads and MacBooks and things like that to use as props.
Oh, okay. I suppose they can afford it, can't they?
They can, yeah, and I think it's free advertising.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's to the point where it's actually noticeable when characters don't use iPhones. Like, Joe, when you watch anything Sony and everyone uses a Sony laptop, it's like, who the fuck uses a Vio?
I mean, it's usually the big brands that you see anyway. It's like Coca-Cola, Nike, that sort of thing, Pepsi. I'm thinking of the Wayne's World, really bad product placement where it's just like the Pizza Hut.
Contractor, no. I will not bow to any sponsor.
Yeah, and if anyone's ever been curious, like, what was the backstory behind that? They are all real product placements. And the behind-the-scenes story is that Mike Myers and Dana Carvey didn't want to have them, dotted throughout the film and make it look unrealistic. So they filmed that scene. Just like we do when we do ads and we expect the person to go, no, you're not allowed to do that, and then they sign off on it.
Yeah.
Like, they did that, and then the company signed off on it being okay because they didn't realise that they were taking the piss.
How can you not realise?
Because companies, like Nisha, Sony re-released Morbius in theatres because they didn't know that the memes were making fun of how bad it is. Companies are just that stupid. There's a bunch of rules and regulations when it comes to showing things on screen, when it comes to brands, and I couldn't find a definitive answer on whether or not Ray-Ban paid to have Tom Cruise wear the aviator glasses in Top Gun, or whether just production thought, well, he should wear aviators because he's an aviator, that thing, and they just asked Ray-Ban for some glasses and they handed them off for free and signed off on it. And what muddies the waters on this a little bit is the fact that Tom Cruise already had a pre-established relationship with Ray-Ban because in the film Risky Business, he wears a pair of Wayfarers. And again, we don't know whether that was Ray-Ban paying to have Tom Cruise wear the glasses or if it was just production thought those glasses would suit his character and asked Ray-Ban for a couple of them. What we do know though is that when Tom Cruise donned that pair of Wayfarers in that film, the company was selling, and I have the number here, about 18,000 pairs a year.
So not doing well for
Not
business
many.
then.
So worldwide, they sold about 18,000 pairs of Wayfarers because they were a design that was largely popular in the 1950s. However, after the release of the film, sales of the glasses increased 20-fold. And that is a trend that continues to this day because, you know, Ray-Bans are in now. Like the glasses I'm wearing, like a knockoff pair, but like, you know, they're very clearly inspired by the design. So Tom Cruise wearing that pair of glasses in one film in the 1980s resulted in like the entire landscape of like eyewear fashion changing, and its effects can still be felt today. The thing is though, I do kind of wish that Morpheus glasses took, because I really do like the fucking the insectoid super like tiny eyeglasses. Bring it back to Ray-Ban. Whatever the case in regards to like how the glasses ended up in the film, they were understandably, after the success Wayfarers saw of the release of Risky Business, chomping at that Tom Cruise bit, getting to wear another pair. And as expected, after the release of Top Gun, sales of aviators, which were pretty popular at the time, so like, the sales hadn't slumped as much as they had for Wayfarers. They were still a consistently popular, good-selling style of eyeglass. But they weren't the thing to wear. After the release of Top Gun, they absolutely were.
Of course.
And sales increased like 40 to 50% almost overnight for the company.
Wow. It's like, have you seen that thing about Binley Mega Chippy? Apparently this guy just wrote a song about it on TikTok, and now they've got lines coming out the door every day.
Binley, and that's the thing, you can never predict something that's going to go viral. And that's something we've experienced ourselves of being online content creators. Like when things go viral, you can't anticipate what's going to go viral. All you can do is ride that wave, and that's what Ray-Ban did. And they just rushed more pairs into production, and they to this day enjoy the success those two movies brought them. But I do have to mention the fact that it wasn't just glasses that were popularised by Top Gun, it was also Navy recruitment, because the US Navy also saw an uptick in recruitment after the release of Top Gun, to the point where they would set up recruitment booths outside of theatres showing the film. And that's just so fucking depressing.
Really?
So how many people watched a film? Because I think one of the characters fucking dies in that movie.
Yeah, oh, I remember that, yeah.
Do you know that meme of the guy looking at Gundam and he's like, wow, cool robots, and it's like criticism of fucking capitalism is like going over the head. It's like, how can you watch a film like that? I'm like, wow, this looks awesome. It's like, the guy in it dies.
Yeah. Oh. I bet out of using all them cameras as well, they get 30 seconds of usable footage in a day.
Yep.
Because that is the way of filming.
It is the way of filming, yeah. It's like when they filmed Apollo 13, I think it is, with Tom Hanks. Mm-hmm. They were originally going to use wire work and CGI to recreate the weightlessness of being in space. And they were going to get a few shots on, as it's called, the Vomit Comet, which is that plane that goes up and down and simulates weightlessness.
Yeah.
Until they realised, if we write every scene set in zero gravity to only be 30 seconds long before we cut, we could realistically film every zero-G scene in zero-G. So that's what they did.
Oh,
so they rewrote the film so that every scene where they were in zero gravity to cut at least every 30 seconds so they could get the usable footage on the Vomit Comet.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
That would have been fun, but also what a ball ache that would be. Imagine getting all the camera equipment into a plane that feels like it's falling out of the sky.
I know, some stuff, you don't realise how much effort and how much patience it takes to film something specific. Because with one of my projects at uni, I had to wait for a day when it was overcast. I couldn't have shadows in one of my projects. Yeah. And how awkward is that? Because you can't control the weather. Especially
not in the UK, waiting for a day that's not overcast.
I mean, to be fair, that is pretty common. But I remember I filmed, and then the footage wasn't very good, so I had to wait another day to get another overcast day and refilm. And I was just this is such a ball ache.
It was we talked about it, didn't we? We were talking about the film Twister, where they got nothing but clear skies for the entirety of production, which ended up being an issue because it's a film about twisters. The weather needed to be, at the very least, overcast. So they had to CGI dangerous-looking clouds into the background of shots. Mm-hmm. And then there's something I've been watching in anticipation of a week of content we're going to be putting out for the Better Call Saul finale. Because I'm a huge fan of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and I've been watching all the director's commentary tracks. And something that stuck out to me is just a scene in Better Call Saul season 1 or 2, I think it is, where it's just they're sat in an office, I think the Hamlin and McGill. They're sat there, and just the director's commentary, they say, oh yeah, well, you'd think this would be a pretty easy scene to film, but no, it's not in an office somewhere. This is in a soundstage, and to make it look like there's something out the office, we got a giant, like 8K photograph of I think LA blown up and put in the background. But this is supposed to be set in Albuquerque. So what we did is we got a bunch of potted plants and put them in front of the window, so it looks like there's trees outside. But then we realised that it'd be windy, so then we had to get fans off to the side to blow the fans in. It was like all that for the background of a shot no one's going to see, because you've got like the acting in Better Call Saul front and centre.
Oh my god. I'm surprised they didn't just do that in post. Like, why don't they just sit in front of a green screen and do it in post instead?
It's something they talk about. I highly recommend people go track down the director's commentaries for Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, where they did near enough everything for real that they could. And there's one scene that it blew my mind, like speaking of the weather being an issue. And it's the scene, I think it's season 2 maybe, where it's Badger does the drug deal and gets arrested. Mm-hmm. And there'll be a clip of the scene in now if the editor can find it. Hopefully that description's enough for them to get it.
Hey.
And they wanted the sun to be in a very specific location throughout filming. The problem was the sun was at the wrong side. So what they did is first they blocked out the sun. So first they Mr. Burns'd it and they literally blocked out the sun. And they brought in 3 trucks full of generators to create an artificial sun, which could block out the residual light from the actual sun so they could get the shadows going in the right location.
My God.
And then they just sat there all day. And that's the thing. They blocked out the sun and then created a new sun for a minute-long scene. And that's filming, isn't it?
Yeah, that's just, even though I'm used to filming, just some of the stuff that is usable after hours of work, it's just...
Look at these videos.
Devastating.
We record for half an hour and get 10 to 15 minutes of workable footage.
That's not too bad,
it's not
to be fair. But when you've been filming for 14 hours a day and you get, 5 minutes of good footage, it's like... Ugh.
It just reminds me that there's always a Simpsons bit for it, where it's the Radioactive Man episode. And it's like, Millhouse, we need you to record the Jiminy Jillikers scene again. He's like, we did it. It took 8 hours, but we did it. It's like, yes, but now we need to shoot it again, and again, and again, and again. He's like, and just pulls his head out and screams and runs away. Must be infuriating.
Again and again, and again and again and again.
Ah!